Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and lads and ladettes. Welcome to the YouTube channel. This is my tier list video about Valorant. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty about where these characters or agents fit on this list, I'd like to say every tier list is going to be different. Different people prefer different things, and I think with experience and due time, we may see things be a little bit more similar. But since Valorant hasn't been out for too long for this closed beta, then, I think we're all going to have a little bit of mixed opinions, and you shouldn't take any of them as facts because we have different experiences, we have a different set of criteria, and it's good to get that sort of out of the way before we start getting into the nitty gritty of this tier list. As someone who has previously been affiliated with Overwatch at a competitive level, both as a coach and a commentator, Valorant has been something that I've been interested in. And from the ability side, I think this is where the tier list is going to come in handy. You know, let's try to evaluate these characters and see which ones are the most important. Solo queue and both competitive, which is difficult to do, I think, but we'll try our best. Now, I think there are two characters immediately that need to be addressed. So let's get them. We're gonna put Raze and Sage. I believe that is their name. So I'm unfamiliar with all of their names. I know all their abilities and how they interact, but I'm just not familiar with the names. So I apologize. I believe that is their names. So these two, I think they're S tier. I think they're pretty much essential for most team compositions. I think having a heal is pretty useful. The fact that she can use it on herself and on teammates is a huge bonus, in my opinion. And, it means that you could effectively take more trades, right? So if you had a close trade with someone, all of a sudden you're on 2 HP, you can heal yourself up, or vice versa. If their teammate has been in that position, you can rotate and attempt to get that heal off, and therefore you're more formidable for your next engagement. With these fights, especially in such a game where you can get poked down, getting healed is actually a pretty useful tool. If there was a device in CSGO to heal, I'm pretty sure everyone would be purchasing it at the start of the round. So yeah. She's also really good because she is really the only character in the game that can hold down multiple choke points down herself, maximum 3. So she has 2 of the slowing balls and also her wall. Her slow balls last for quite a decent amount of time, and her wall also lasts for quite a long time too. So she is fantastic in terms of utility, the best utility in the game, I believe. Her Resurrect, of course, that's always going to be a powerful ability in these types of games. Undisputedly fantastic. She belongs in every single comp, and if you don't put her in your comp, then, you're probably missing out on something, I feel. Okay, and this character's here because she's overtuned. Raze is certainly raising hell at the moment. Summit's been very vocal on her power level. Shroud's actually said she's one of the worst characters. Now, here's my sort of take on it. I think Raze definitely is strong because if she has her ultimate, she's definitely trading. Unless you're absolutely dog shit. You're playing like Jet or something, you can dodge a rocket. I mean, you're 100% at least getting a trade when you use her ultimate. But most of the time you're going to get a kill. You can just satchel out or whatever, or satchel in. It's very difficult to deal with once she has her ultimate. Her grenade is probably one of the best, undisputedly the best grenade in the game. Does a shit ton of damage. And her drone allows her to do advantageous peaks on her terms, because you have to focus down the drone because that thing can kill you. Her satchel charges mean she can position on different high grounds to get better vantage points, and it also synergizes well with her kit, making her have different grenade spots and different ways you can engage with your ultimate. So she's a very well-rounded character and has a lot of abilities that are extremely strong. And in fact, I think all of her abilities are extremely strong. She has no sort of weak point. I guess the only downside would be is you want most of her abilities every single round, which could affect your economy, whatever. Yeah, so these two are definitely the best characters in the game. So yeah, there we go. That is S tier for you. Now, here's where things get a little bit tricky, I feel. And I'm going to be debating with myself the rest of this video. Because there isn't many characters that I would consider bad. I feel like the rest are sort of middle of the pack. But I feel like you can sort of differentiate these characters a little bit by splitting them off. So, I believe this guy's name is Sipho. I think, actually, we'll do it. We'll try to do everything in order. I think Fenix is up there. Very, very useful ultimate. One, because you can gather information. Two, because you can, effectively always do something useful with it. Like, there's no downside of using Phoenix's ultimate unless, like, you've decided to ult in a point where they always are going to catch you out once you teleport back to the spot. You can get information, you can get kills, and you can get tags, right? Wonderful sort of trifecta of usage there. I mean, you could even plop a flash bang, a flash bang, a flash fucking bang. Bro, I cannot speak today. I cannot speak. It's the coffee. I'm calling it. It's the coffee. Anyway, yeah, his ultimate's incredibly useful. One of the best ultimates in the game. Also has the flashbang, also has a wall, also has the fire utility. All fire spells heal him, which is incredible. Healing is really good in this game. And the flashbangs, certainly in aggressive engagements, this guy's very useful. He's useful both in the solo queue and competitive sense. Solo queue because it's really hard to duel the Phoenix if he knows where you are because of that flashbang. And competitively, his flashbang would be even more useful in a team sense because, you can tell people not to look towards it and you can effectively get a good push off it. So yeah, Phoenix, a really, really, really solid all-round character. He's going to be a character that a lot of CSGO people are going to be leaning towards, I feel, because he does have that sort of standard entry type feel to him, especially with the frag potential that he does have. This bloke, he has a very unique set of abilities that I feel like are better utilized in certain circumstances, but those certain circumstances make him really powerful. Now, Cypher is a play for time kind of character. His traps are incredibly useful in situations where they can be applied for. Not only does he have abilities that can see people, obviously information in this type of game is going to be incredibly useful, but in a situation where you have a plant and they have to rotate, this guy can be really annoying to deal with because especially if they're on the lower side of the clock, thanks Norton, and the bomb is close to exploding, they have to rush around the map, right? And this is where this guy becomes very useful. If they decide to rush around and they run into this guy's tripwire, they have to shoot it or they get stunned. If they shoot it, you know exactly where they are. It's a pseudo ultimate, really. Incredibly useful for when they have to run around and try and sort it out, try to get to that location where they need to be. He is very good at halting rushes. He always gets the relevant information that he needs, which is fantastic. He's a really strong character in that regard. His ultimate, of course, reveals everyone on the map, then you can play around that. And the camera is very useful too, and he also has a blind spot smoke type thingy, where it's a sort of a CC. So yeah, really, really strong character, I feel. I haven't played much of him personally, but I think in certain situations this guy can become very oppressive. I don't think he's as strong on the attack side. That's why I'm not putting him in the S tier. In fact, yeah, that's why I think Phoenix is probably better than him, because this guy isn't as versatile. So yeah, we're going to try and make this in order here. I'm going to have Mr. Bowman. Just because of information. This guy is very good at gathering information. Information in these types of games is very useful. The bow can single out anyone who's trying to do something cheesy, tried to hold a tight corner or whatever. And he does have a drone as well to get information. You can't exactly let the drone free because you're going to spot everyone, and from that information You know, you can try to make forward a push based on what you saw. Drones are incredibly useful in this game, I feel, and the fact that he has a scouting arrow and a drone, I think warrants himself within the A tier. So yeah, there we go. I don't really have too much else to say about him. His ult's like okay. I don't think his ult's actually game breaking. His ult's good. I think in a competitive environment within solo queue, I don't think it's very useful. Once you have information with this guy, his ultimate does become a lot more powerful. But yeah. Hmm. Okay. We're gonna have Breach here. I'm putting Breach here because I think he's good competitively. I don't think he's a strong character in solo queue. Um, because his stun isn't actually, like in my opinion, that good. Um, but when you have specific timings, this character can become annoying, and his timing windows aren't actually that long. But if you have people who can play around those timings, or if you have good communication, I feel like this character can be quite strong. But if you don't have good communication and the windows aren't there, he becomes a lackluster character, possibly even in the C tier. But because of how good he can be within a competitive environment, with his abilities, they all synergize while going through walls. If you have people who can follow up on that immediately, then I feel like Breach can be a lot more powerful. Probably one of the most powerful ultimates in the game. Once you do have follow up, and default ability can be really strong too. The difference is you need follow up. He can't do it by himself. He cannot carry by himself Breach because his abilities work too slow for him to follow up on his own stuff most of the time. So yeah. And this guy, he's going to be a nuisance. He could be one of the best characters for solo queue because of his ultimate. He can get around anywhere. Great mobility. Very well rounded character. Maybe in competitive he won't be as useful because maybe the lack of um, chaos will make him a little bit more limited. But he certainly is going to be a menace in solo queue. He has a great all-round kit, having the smoke, having a way to get up on higher ground. He's really, really good. Um, in fact, I'd probably maybe have him over. See, I'm not actually sure. Yeah, I'll probably have him over there. I'm not exactly sure about how to structure this A thing, but we'll talk about that later. We'll organize things, all right? I really like this character. So, dealing with the rest. Here's how I'm doing it with the rest. Okay. This is the completed tier list. Goodbye. No, I'm joking. So Brimstone, he has unique capabilities where his ultimate, in my opinion, is one of the best in the game, because it forces people out of areas, and if you get locked in it, you're dead. And his utility at the start of rounds is incredibly useful. Those smoke grenades that you can plant, I feel like in a competitive environment would be pretty good. Even in solo queue or whatever, I think it is pretty useful to have. So you can fake spots, you can deliberately go there to try and limit the options at which the enemy can see you. But otherwise, his stim doesn't seem to be the most useful thing in the world. His molly's okay. He just doesn't have the same tools that I think these other characters have. I would relate him to Breach, in a way, sort of like these characters are at a similar level. I feel. In fact, I might go like that. Well, that's close. That's close. These two are very similar. Okay, I think we're gonna go like that. We're gonna do that. All right, we'll do that. But yeah, this guy's he's pretty good, but I feel like he's lacking. He's lacking something. I can't exactly explain. He just feels like he's lacking something. Viper, weird character. Weird character. These two are very clutch characters. They have the tools to clutch it out, but they're lacking. Viper's kit is very niche. I feel like in a setup environment, Viper can be utilized, but in solo queue, I feel like she is trash tier. Her ultimate's actually pretty good, and she can force you technically, but those scenarios are few and far between, and I feel like she needs a little bit of setup and support in order to utilize her sort of slow gameplay. I think she can become useful. It's just it needs a bit of workaround. That's why I have her in C rather than D. I feel like there's a little bit of a difference here. But yeah, I think she belongs in the C. It's difficult. She's a setup character like Cypher is, but I feel like Cypher's better at what Viper does. They're both better on defense, I feel. Cypher a little bit more, Viper maybe a little bit more on attack in certain situations, but I don't know, man. Like, she just seems a little bit clunky to me. That's how I explain it. I think maybe she's a good character, but to me, she seems clunky. Jet. Now, by no means do I think this character is bad, but I feel like compared to the rest of the class, she isn't good. She doesn't seem good compared to these guys, right? She's comparable to power level with Viper, but I feel like I need someone in the D tier, so maybe these guys are equal. We'll talk about that later. She'd be better if her smokes lasted longer. They don't really last long at all. She does get 3 charges, sure, but they don't last long at all to really make an impact, and her ultimate seems lackluster. Like, unless you're an aim god, and even if you are an aim god, like, other guns can still, like, out-duel you, you know? It isn't fast enough to warrant, like, doing that all the time, even if it's on cooldown, you know? Even if it's off cooldown, whatever. Or you want to activate it on cooldown. Her dashes aren't the most useful thing, but they're okay. To get into position, to dodge AWPing, to go around the corners, sure. But you can't exactly do anything after the dash, right? So it's more of a repositioning tool, not a, oh, I'm going to outplay you in a duel tool, which is what, she's advertised as. Because of how the movement system works in this game, similar to CS, you are penalized if you are moving, so she is all about movement, and you can't do that mid-duel, otherwise your bullets are going to go blah, 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 fucking all over the place, But yeah, she doesn't have the most utility, and even as a solo queue carry, she doesn't exactly function the best in that environment either, which is unfortunate. She is no bad character by any means, but compared to these big dogs, I feel like she's a little bit lackluster. If her smokes had a little bit more time, I think she'd be a lot better character. She'd be better than Viper. But these guys are it's pretty similar. I mean, Jet could even be better than Viper. This is just my initial thoughts about going too much into detail with all of these guys. But yeah, this is my tier list. I think Breach competitively is A, but the fact that he's pretty bad in solo queue puts him down at B. Sort of similar circumstance with Brimstone, but this is my tier list, everyone. This isn't a fact. This isn't gospel. This is just my opinions. Someone has come from Overwatch as a coach. Someone who has dipped into Valorant for a little bit. That's my initial thoughts based on their abilities and how applicable they could be given in certain situations. So yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, lads and ladettes. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you want any more of these content videos, feel free to like the video and subscribe if you wish. So take care, everyone. Miss you all. Goodbye. You on the block, thought that I would say hi. Action never stops, clock ticking in due time.